Em Rusciano and Michael Lucas.
I was like, piss off, mate. You're trying to kill me?
This is Emsolation.
So they all buy a boat together and they pick up hot pirates. This thing writes itself.
A lot of reality shows about vulvas. And you know what? I'm enjoying them.
That stuff can get really ratty. And you can look like you got a dead spider on your eyelid, okay?
I just go into the salt chomper, you could carve it.
You're in Emsolation.
Mate, you didn't have the mask on your vagina. I don't understand. Hello, how are you? Thank you for being here. Thank you for choosing us. It's me, it's Em Rusciano, your friend, your pal. Look, long-term listeners of this podcast, you guys know that we swing between very deep topics and very shallow topics. And I'm proud of that. And that's what I always wanted to make, because that's life, isn't it? Being able to navigate the hilarious and the things that break your heart is important and relevant and real. So today's going to be no exception, especially in my intro. Later on, Michael and I are going to talk about Massimo from 365 Days' new swimwear line, which he's designing with his feminine essence. So that's true. That's what the website says. We also talk about the US presidential election. Of course, Joe Biden has named a Veep. And we talk extensively about a new podcast we're obsessed with that has explored women's sexuality once they leave a long-term relationship. You know, maybe they're in their 40s. And they're worried, you know, that they're never going to get out there again or feel alive again. And we found a podcast where 3 women talk very openly about having this whole big sexual awakening in their 40s. And it's fascinating. So we deep dive on that. But what I really want to talk to you now about is mental wellness and mental health. And there's a trigger warning that's going to come for you, because I'm going to be talking about suicide. This morning I watched a video from a farmer named Ross Madden, and tragically a young man in his area took his life. And I'm going to play for you that audio. So I just want to give a big warning right now that we are about to discuss suicide, and if that's something that you do feel will trigger you, that you don't feel up to listening to, that you just can't handle it, that you just don't want to take in some heavy stuff now, totally cool. Just skip right forward now, and maybe come back and listen when you're feeling stronger and braver another time. But I did want to really give you a warning now, just to skip ahead to Michael Lucas coming in and saying hello. So I'm going to play for you now Ross's video, and I want you to hear his voice, and I want you to hear what he has to say, because he really summed up, you know, the idea behind writing stuff like, are you okay, and putting things online and on social media, but not actually following it up properly, and him himself wishing he had followed it up. Have a listen to Ross.
I might not have been thinking lately, because last night I found out a bit of bad news, and it's really, really sort of got me real, and I've taken a real sort of step backwards, because I found out that a young bloke, a really good young bloke, had taken his life last Saturday. Now, we weren't best friends. I didn't know him really all that well, but when we did catch up, it was a bloody good yarn and we talked some pretty good shit. So here I am thinking, you know, like everyone ponders around and bandies these slogans about like it's okay not to be okay, and you know, just talk, and if you're not feeling the best, you know, like ring a phone number. So what happens when there's no one to talk to? What happens when you're too proud to talk? What happens when you try and ring Lifeline and there's an hour and a half, 2 hour wait? What do you do? Where do you go? If we all sat here and said, oh, you know, it's okay not to be okay, and we've bandied all these friggin' slogans around long enough that everyone thinks it's all right. We'll post a little post and we'll throw a little thing around, hashtag fucking okay not to be okay or whatever. But it's obviously not working, because all I'm saying is young country fella after young country fella falling off the perch. You feel helpless. There's nothing you can do about it. And whether talking to him would have changed his mind, or the other fellas I know, whether talking to them would have changed their mind, I don't know. But I don't know. Maybe we could take this moment to think about, oh, you know, Frank's just had a bit of a breakup, or he's having a bit of a hard time with his missus, or I don't know, maybe I should give Frank a call, or I don't know. Is there somebody you think that you should call to do something about it? Don't put it on the back burner. Don't say you're too busy. Just ring a mate and see if you can make a difference, because, yep, I sure would like to have done that. Anyway, hooroo.
I think he's spot on. I think I've been guilty in the past of, reposting things from Are You OK Day and talking about mental health, but not really doing the hard work of, as someone who, look, I've been open about my mental health, mental wellness issues, whatever you want to call it. And I've been lucky that I do have a good support network around me, and I do feel confident saying to my close friends, hey, I'm struggling, but not everyone does. Or sometimes, like Ross said, they're too proud. They don't want to worry people. They don't want to burden people because everyone's going through it, right? But I think, this is a real problem, and this young boy is actually from an area where my family live, where I have family who are farmers, and he was friends with my cousin. And they've been through a lot in that area already. They've had the fires, of course, and then, all the shutdowns for coronavirus, and he's not the first young man to do it in that area. In fact, there's been a spate of them. So I guess what I'm trying to say to you is be aware of actually walking the talk with the Are You OK stuff, the reaching out to friends and family or to a workmate. And if you're someone who's listening now that this is really resonating with you and this is kind of sparking something in you and you feel like you need to reach out but you don't know where, there are a few places you can go. Now, Lifeline have been inundated this year. They've said that. They've had more calls than ever. But the number for Lifeline is 131114. But the other thing that Lifeline have, which I think is an amazing idea, is the Lifeline text. Because, guys, as you know, sometimes it's fucking hard to talk. Sometimes it's really hard to put into words how crap you're feeling. And so if you can just text it to someone who will be there on the other end to help you work it out, I think that is such a great idea and disarming as well. So the Lifeline text, and it's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, is 0477 131114. Just for those times when you're finding it hard to talk. And I guess, there are lots of online courses that you can do to make yourself, I guess, more equipped at dealing and helping family members to deal with hard times, because we don't all naturally know. So you go and you say to someone, how are you? And if they come back with, I'm really not well, I've been having some really dark thoughts, it's tough to know what to say next, isn't it? One of our community actually told me this morning about a mental health first aid course that you can do. It's if you go to therumpus.com.au, and it's simple, practical first aid skills to help you support a family member, friend, co-worker or other person experiencing mental health problems. And I love the idea of mental health first aid. I think that's a great way to look at it. So anyway, that's I wanted you to hear those powerful words. I just hearing them from Ross's mouth and the way he spoke them so beautifully in such a quintessentially Australian way, I thought you all needed to hear. And remember, reach out if you need to, but remember to actually reach out to others as well. All right. Thanks, guys. We do go everywhere, don't we? And on that note, it's probably time I bring in my offsider, my support person a lot of the time, and I'm very lucky to have him. And he has me too. Mr. Michael Lucas. Play the music.
Emrasiano and Michael Lucas. This is Emsolation.
All right, I wish people could hear our pre-show meetings. Michael Lucas, hello.
Because we almost delivered the entire podcast in about 45 seconds, with unable to stop ourselves, no self-control whatsoever. And also we keep yelling at each other the same thing. Save it. Why? We need every time. We never learn.
I know. Our friendship's really going to suffer because we can't decompress, not decompose. Although
some critics of the podcast might say.
We don't have critics. Decompress on subjects now. I have to stop myself from texting you or calling you on certain things like say that. But that's okay. Our friendship has just become us yelling that at each other. Say that. But the roundup was we've got to talk about the fact that Joe Biden's announced a VP. There's shit going on in New Zealand. So we're going to do a quick news roundup at the top because we are your source for very important
God
breaking
help
news.
You if we are us. We're your
and
source.
Also, obviously, just briefly touching on Meghan Markle, Harry, setting the record straight, their book coming out, Finding Freedom. Oh, my God, what a provocative title. But let's go first. So 4 active cases in New Zealand after they celebrated 100 days with a big to-do, big rah.
Yeah.
Look at us, 100 days of just being cleansed of the Rona.
Yeah.
Now they've got four mystery cases.
Well, is it a breach of quarantine or has it been sort of floating around undetected, asymptomatic? That feels hard to imagine that it's gone that far for 100 days. So my money would be on some sort of quarantine breach at some point.
But how? Like, did what?
Well,
but I
somewhere
don't
we had
understand.
them. Well, they've got people in hotels too. They've got the whole, you're locked up and people have to. So, same deal. Someone, I don't know, gets a bit too close to one of the quarantine travellers. Maybe, I don't know. Or, I mean, it is possible that it was floating around. Given what a high percentage of people don't have symptoms, it could have just been floating around. But I mean, it's a fascinating reaction from Australia because. I do feel like saying, come on, just take any smugness out of your eyes, Australia.
So much smugness.
They've still managed it much better than us.
I have to say, and this is horrible, when I heard it, part of me did go, humph, good. Like, I mean, obviously, I hope everyone's okay and it's all fine, but part of me did go, oh, well, I don't feel quite so bad about
we are getting literally 100 times the amount of cases just in our state alone.
I know.
But, sure.
Imagine how excited we'd be if one day someone just said 4. We'd be like, oh my God.
I know.
Oh my God, what? I'm going out for a run and I'm touching everyone. I know. I mean, it was my first reaction. And then I, of course, said to myself, Em, you're a terrible person. But when we did get the 4 cases through, I did, honest, just being honest.
You had
just
a little
being real,
moment.
Guys. A little moment of, well, they just celebrated 100 days. It might have held back on that one.
But the thing that blows my mind is you see all this coverage of it that sort of said Jacinda Ardern and then it's like, it's only a couple of months out from the election. But like, honestly, guys, what's been her misstep in this one? I mean, she's been faultless. Even with this, like, how was she... She's done everything right. This has happened.
Oh, my God. Her approval ratings are so high. I mean, I don't even want to speculate what it would take for her to not be the most popular Prime Minister in the history of New Zealand. I'm not gonna, because I don't want to jinx her.
And how's the decisiveness on it's instantly, stage 3, right away, 3 days, we're doing it, and then we'll tell you what happens on Friday. It's incredible. Unlike us, back and forth for months and then finally one stage and then another.
It's great. It's just mum's come out. She's gone, go to your room for 3 days, all right? And we'll talk about it after that. Like, she's just sent the country to their room collectively, and that's why she's good. I love Jacinda. I don't love her social media posts where she's got poor lighting, and you and I have argued extensively about that.
Yeah.
You say you think it makes her more every woman and approachable. I'm like, I want my Prime Ministers to be well lit. Soz about it, not soz.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, fair enough. I understand your perspective, but I do. She is a real pioneer in the home FaceTime. And I'm down with it. I love the ones she did at the start of their lockdown. I watched them, even though I wasn't in New Zealand. I just wanted to be sort of tucked in by Jacinda telling me about how the bubble works.
She's so likeable.
And if you try and think of the equivalent here, I mean, if ScoMo switched on a FaceTime, like even if you're a fan of him, you don't want that. You don't want that.
To be the wrong way. He'd have to yell for his daughter to come and show him how to use the camera. Like, it would be a whole mess.
And he'd bung on some Australianisms that would just sort of make you...
God.
You'd have to concede she's good at it. Like, at least she's
good.
Yeah.
But I feel like... just go and find some light in the house. I want to see you better. Like Madonna doesn't make a video without 3 gays buzzing around her holding lights. There's got to be a middle ground between that and pitch black bad angles. You know what I mean? That's all I'm saying. I want a middle ground.
Okay.
While we're in the world of politics, big news for us, maybe not so much for anyone listening right now, is that Joe Biden, who is the Democratic nominee for the presidential election happening in America in November, has announced a VP.
Kamala Harris.
Yes, we tipped. I mean, I just want to say I tipped Kamala.
Yes, once again, you're completely right. The only thing that was weird about it was it did feel very kind of obvious early on, and then it was taking so long and he blew his deadline. So for a second I'm like, oh, maybe there's been a new up-and-comer that is challenging, or maybe they've found out some aspect, or maybe they just didn't click when they sat down with each other, because she did really go him in the debates. I mean...
she basically called him racist.
Yeah, totally.
100%. Like, and she's that famous, he
that girl was me. Yeah, busing.
Yeah, the education department mandating buses pick up kids to go to school, and she said, well, I was one of those kids that got bussed. I was that little girl. So you saying, I shouldn't have been able to get to school.
She had the T-shirts printed ready to go when she delivered that line. She literally sold merch of her attack of Joe Biden. But But I actually think it makes me respect him that he's thought, yeah, you know what, I can take some criticism and I still think she's good.
I'm just worried. I'm worried. He's 78, you guys. I want everyone to think about 78. Do you know what I mean? The oldest, if he wins, he'll be the oldest US president in the history of presidents. And that, the 2 terms, that takes him in well into his 80s. So while everyone's saying, the Veep role is kind of ceremonial, she could well
step in. I know, and 78 is, that's considerably older than my mother, and have obviously enormous love and respect for my mother, but I don't necessarily want her to be the president of the United States at the moment. If we could squash it in so the hours are a bit less and she was still able to sit down with Gardening Australia and gin of a night, then maybe we could talk. But I don't think that's how it works.
Well, it does. Apparently, the current president gets up at 10, has a fillet of fish for breakfast, and goes and plays golf for 5 hours. It could work. It could happen, Well, we'll see. What I do, that's our news roundup. I'll talk about Meghan and Harry Meghan and Harry are releasing a book, right? And it's basically called Road to Freedom. And I just think the title is so provocative. And once I've read it, we'll talk about it. I'm going to review the book, but I don't want to blow it now. But that book is about to come out and I'm pretty excited.
But hang on, did they write it or has someone written it and they thought that it was all, that they heavily influenced and it's basically their perspective? Have they officially written it?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
No, they haven't written it. Royal journalists have penned it, but if I'm reading this wrong, I'm assuming they have contributed to it in terms of they've been interviewed.
Right.
And this is the truth. Yeah, I think it is very much sanctioned by them.
Yeah.
I don't know. Either way, I can't wait for that season of The Crown. So what I'm most excited about, though, everyone, Emsolation listeners, is I was alerted to, as we all know, Michele Morrone from 365 Days is, a favourite subject of mine. And I was pretty excited to learn that he has a clothing line.
He does.
So, yeah. And it's called Orumuruma. Orumuruma. It's really hard to pronounce.
Yeah.
Anyway, my favourite part of this clothing line is how they describe what his design process is. So this is obviously Massimo from 365 Days. Here we go. Aruma was created from Michele Morrone's intuition. So I'm assuming he just stood there and thought really hard about what he wanted these tiny bathers to look like. And then a small Italian man stood there and caught his thoughts. And just feeling like, I just wanted to cover her areola, but it could slip out at any time. That was a very bad attempt. It's been Indian then. Okay, here we go.
It's racist, except for the fact that you're Italian.
I was trying to be Italian.
Okay.
Yeah. Was created from Michele Morrone's intuition, inspired by the ideal of solemn beauty as a symbol of ancient glories and mythology. He designed his first collection with the purpose of portraying his personal model of feminine essence. Enhancing it in every aspect. Sign me up. Take all my money.
Have you ordered some of this swimwear?
Sadly, it doesn't have enough structural integrity for me. So it's literally like one piece of Lycra wrapped around the model's nipples, and then they're so high cut. I think I would have.
It's dazzling.
Yeah.
Like you can't help but zoom in on those pictures going, hang on.
Well, the first thing I thought was, where do I put my flaps? There's not enough surface area of material for flap coverage. Flap to surface ratio, it does not add up. And when I go and look, first I think my eyes watered. Then I thought I would pop a flap flat out. Like they're so high cut that it would be like, I'm trying to think of an example in real life where something just oozes out.
It's just basically like you'd honestly get more coverage from a bit of dental floss just wrapped around pretty much.
Maybe, but I look at there's this whole fashion out there now of swimsuits that is just like impossible. I don't understand. You wouldn't be able to move. You wouldn't be able to do a strong breaststroke. Do you know what I mean?
You wouldn't be walk.
Or what if you got into trouble in the surf? You just have to get naked to save yourself. Because these are bathing suits for people who just lay on the beach and you can't even put on sun cream. Like they're crazy. But if this is what Michele Morrone's intuition is telling him I need to wear.
You must respect it. He also has made, don't forget that you've got the Aphrodite kimonos. And I also like, what a cultural blend there. But I think the idea is you wear the kimono and then you arrange yourself and then you take off the kimono and everything's all ready for Instagram. I think that's his concession to, we know you can't move in this, so we'll give you a kimono.
But like some of the things, I don't understand how they're actually standing up. I don't quite understand how scientifically the suits work.
Maybe he's had some sort of scientific breakthrough. He's defied gravity in some way.
Well, who are we to say that his personal model of feminine essence is incorrect? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
he's connected to something elemental. We all saw it. We all watched the yacht scene in 365 DNI. And also, let's respect, when it comes to the precise not showing of genitalia, he's demonstrated that he goes so close. That's his brand. God. I'll go right up to the line.
You're so right. That is his brand. Top of peen. He should have just called Just a Hint of Peen. That's what the label should be called. Just a Hint of Peen by Michael Morone. Oh, my God. Amazing. This is...
He's bringing his penis hiding know-how to flaps, and hats
off.
I think the market's limited, if I'm honest. But
dude, the market is down to the women in those pictures. That's it. The women in those pictures who clearly have very small vaginal areas, and well done, girls. Speaking of vaginal areas, we want to talk about something called a yoni whisperer.
This is clearly, we should just call this Vag Week because
it is Vag Week, and what a time to be alive. Welcome to Vag Week. Look, it's always my mission to get vaginas forefront, as everyone knows. I am known as the vagina lady. Let's be honest.
For you, every week is Vag Week.
Yeah.
But this week particularly.
Yeah, but we were... Now, if you recall, the word yoni, this will be the third time the word yoni has been used on this podcast. Initially, it was the yoni egg, which is the $500 jade egg that Gwyneth Paltrow wanted you to pop up your vaginal canal.
Mm.
Then we had the very famous dating show, Too Hot to Handle, where they had...
That's right.
The woman come in and ask them to paint the essence of their yonis. I think Michele Morone would have been involved with that. He'd love a bit of yoni essence. And now we're talking about a yoni whisperer, because Michael texted me, and I think I want to directly quote the text, although I'd have to go back 9,000 years, where he said, I think I've reached peak middle-aged woman. I'm listening to a podcast about, how did you word it exactly?
It said something like about women who are in dead marriages that hit 40 and decided they wanted a sexual awakening and went out and got it. Something like that.
I felt personally attacked, first of all.
I wasn't intending. I was not implying anything about you. I just thought it was a topic that you would enjoy. I was finding it very compelling, especially because the previous yoni examples that we've discussed they were sort of reality TV people that we don't necessarily identify with, but in this circumstance, the women that were a part of this sounded very much like the kind of women that we would know that went on their own yoni exploration.
Because a lot of the people listening to this podcast have had so many children that if you popped a yoni egg up there, it'd just go missing for days, end up in your lower intestine. You might poo it out. I don't know if that's how that works.
I don't know that. I don't know.
I've
got some gaps in female biology, but I'm pretty sure that's not what's going to happen.
You never know. It's so messed up in there for some of us. It could happen. You never know. So this podcast, I listened to it last night, and it is called Curveball.
The club you didn't want to be a part of.
And every episode, there's a different club, basically. And the club we listened to was... women having midlife sexual awakenings. So they were in a club of, they got to around 40 and thought that their vaginas were dead and broken and that they would never have good sex again, basically.
Yeah, and generally they were in pretty much dead marriages, although one of them still loved her husband and stayed with him, which I found fascinating.
Yeah, I also found her language around her husband really interesting.
He's on his journey.
I've set him free.
And the concept is, it's sort of like they're all sitting there with one. These women don't know each other, so it's kind of like the experience in life that you never necessarily thought you were going to have, but you're here now. And so when they start chatting, you can see as it goes on, they're so excited to finally speak to someone who's had a similar sort of journey as they have. So they started out sort of calmly offering their stories, and by the end, they
Yeah, and let's have a little listen. Here's one of my favourite passages from the podcast.
I've just got to say one thing, like about having this full body orgasm that I swear went on for about 30 minutes. It was after having like these 5 hours of massaging, like lots of conscious dancing and lots of kind of like connecting and stuff like that. But then like she just ended up doing this stuff about breathing into the body, and like then she like started using like meridian points all the way down around my ovaries, and then she kind of like went down and went inside. And she's like telling me to kind of like breathe and to pull up all this energy. And then suddenly this kind of sense of 100 million buzzing yellow honey-driven bees started buzzing all the way around my pelvic bowl, and then just started rising up throughout my entire body. And it felt as though this buzzing orgasmic energy filled every single hole that had been in my life. And it felt as though it just kind of sweetened out all of the bitterness. It kind of turned to sweetness. And so then my entire body just was enveloped in this kind of warm, amazing honeyness. And it was completely life-changing.
Okay, so, half-hour orgasm, changing of life. Good. I mean, I feel like we need to take it back. I want to take it right back to, so the three of them are sitting there anonymously chatting.
Yeah, using nom de plumes, Tara,
Yes.
Amy, obviously fake names. Yeah. Acknowledging that it's fake names, yes.
What would your fake name be if you were in the group?
I instantly went to Michelle, but then I realised that's probably a bit too similar. I haven't gone far enough. I just call myself Xander. It was the character in Buffy I closely identified with. Who would you? You would just come in. I am. You just call yourself Madonna or Chacone. No, what would you?
Oh, imagine Chacone. Yeah, no, everyone would know it was me. I'd just say it was me. Let's be honest. I've already basically done a version of this podcast on stage. I mean, pick your club.
Multiple times.
Really? I did hear myself in some of them. I mean, when you have been, I don't want to. This is such a difficult topic to discuss without, hurting people's feelings. When I say people, I mean my husband.
Well, your valiant effort to keep that mysterious. Well done. Yeah.
No, I mean, we've been together for 20 years.
You've got a toddler.
An 18-month-old son who sleeps in the bed with us at the moment. We are co-sleeping with him. Well, we start off the night with good intentions. He's in his cot. Great. And then about 3 a.m., Elio refuses to go back to sleep, and so we put him in the bed with us. And that's how we kind of wake up every day. And we know that that's coming, and I am tired all the time. Scott's hot. There's no doubting my husband is a hot piece of specimen meat. No doubt. I mean, you've all seen the stationary cycling videos. You guys know what he looks like. It's great. But for me, like, I think I've gotten to, like, I'm 41, and I feel like I've given up on myself, and I've put on weight in isolation, and I'm tired all the time. And I do think as a woman, I feel like I'm a guest on Oprah. I don't feel sexy anymore. I feel like...
It's really not going to help if I say you're still sexy to me, is it?
No, please don't say that. That's really good. And it doesn't count. So I don't know. I don't know if anyone listening now understands what I mean. And I know this can happen to women at any age.
I'm pretty sure they will, Em. I'm just going to go out and say I'm pretty sure they will. Everyone, to some extent, especially people in a long-term relationship, know what it's like to be feeling that sexual. But most people will just trundle on and not do anything about it forever.
But I think that that's wrong. I think as women, though, especially, we're told to kind of feel shame around wanting to be sexual, as we discussed earlier in the week with wet-ass pussy. And I just think... women get to a certain age and then we all just joke about, our vagina's on life support, don't want sex anymore, I'm so tired, blah, blah, blah. And maybe that's just a story we've been sold and that's something we're believing about ourselves. But, our clitoris isn't dead.
No.
We're not. It's still there with all its nerve endings.
And as these women prove, maybe the best years are ahead of you. That's certainly what they found. And also the other thing is the women on this podcast, they're not Cardi B. Like, they're not, they sound like people that are kind of similar to us that hit a point where they made a conscious decision of, they literally said, I want to have transcendent sex. I don't think I've had it. I want to have it. And they all went a different way towards getting it. And each one of them, I kind of think, would I do that? Probably not. But I really respected them for doing it.
Well, let's talk about the yoni doulas. We know someone that's gone to one. Can you explain what a yoni doula is?
Well, you want to unlock like your most sort of thunderous orgasm that you possibly can, and basically, I mean, that's what it's about at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Although I guess I don't want. Maybe it's a very male-centric thing to say it's all about the orgasm. It can be about the journey towards the orgasm. But basically, if these women talk about it as well, that they feel like they're not particularly in touch with their bodies, or even particularly in touch with what they like, even though they've got to 40 and they've been sexually active for most of their adult lives. And so the yoni doula helps you explore, I guess, all the erogenous zones of your body and inside and out, and helps to guide you to appreciating pleasure, and in some cases having a thunderous half-hour orgasm.
That changed her personality.
Yes, the orgasm was so convulsive that literally people started, like, she went out into the world afterwards and people responded to her in a different way. It was like there was a light sparkliness coming out of her because the orgasm was so good. I mean, who doesn't want it?
I also loved, I think that was the same woman who casually threw out this.
I did do a week-long workshop, which was one of the most amazing experiences of my life. So you work in a group of 8 to 10 people. You live in the place together. You spend the first 3 days of the 7 days doing exercises, dance and body-based, and discussion and sharing, and everything is stripped bare. And then you are naked for the next 4 days. Like, there's a lot of dancing and getting out of your head and into your body, as we're talking about. And then you work in groups of 6 and you give to one person for 2 hours. It's actually a deeply loving, present experience, because you might be pleasuring someone who you would not ever look in a bar and go, I want to fuck that.
I mean, wow. There was a slow build on that. And I love how she didn't reveal they were then naked for 3 days after that, and then they moved into massage circles and all of those things. That, to me, I'm going to be honest, sounds like my worst fucking nightmare.
To be naked for 3 days.
To have to, like, she was sounding like they were pleasuring strangers.
Yeah, no, I've seen this. I remember watching Sex Life with Sophie Lee back in the 90s. I've seen these sort of camps and arrangements. I mean, it's like when you stepped into that group, imagine the pressure of the first day when you all sit down, you think, I'm going to be naked with these people for so long and I'm going to pleasure them. Like, you'd really be looking around the circle going. But 100%. I feel the same way about going to a swingers party or something like that. You'd step into the room and you'd be like, okay, yep, all right, this is what's happening. But but probably my main thing would be I'd be paranoid that they're thinking that about me. They'd be looking around going, oh, fuck, look at that guy. He's here. Jesus, he's lowered the standard. We were sitting on a solid B+ average attractiveness, and he's dragged it down to a C.
I think if you went to like an exclusively gay male swingers party, I think there'd be a lot of pressure on body image. I don't want to generalize amongst the gay male community. I know we have a lot of listeners, and I know not all of them look, like tight, hard, but I do know through mainly exclusively hanging out with gay men that they feel a lot of pressure about the way they look physically, especially for things like Grindr and when they go to parties. And so I imagine that would be pretty terrifying for a gay couple to head into a gay swingers party. Jesus Christ.
I don't foresee it happening anytime soon, and I don't just mean because of the pandemic.
I know. What does the pandemic...
pity the swingers in the pandemic.
I know. I mean, I feel like we should have... I'm going to seek out a sex doula for us to interview, because I feel like we need to understand it more. And
totally. But it should be said, only one of those women did a camp like that. The other ones were... I mean, one of them might have been the same one, the thing that blew my mind was she made the decision and she decided to take herself out dancing alone. She wanted to get more and she didn't want to go into the apps. The apps were available to her, but she was like, I want to go out dancing. And she even flew herself from Sydney to Melbourne and went out dancing. And I think I would take a friend, but she made the conscious decision not to, because she knew that the friend would be the safety blanket that would have held her back. I respected it. I
know, when I heard her talk about dancing by herself and then getting rejected as well.
I know,
having to deal with that. Yeah, I thought it was pretty cool. No, she was not the sex camp lady. She was a different lady.
Okay.
But I just think, two of them were divorced. But they spoke so beautifully about worrying that because they were in their early 40s and they were divorced after long relationships and they had kids, worried that they couldn't, come into themselves again. And it was really honestly uplifting to hear how sex positive they were and how they rediscovered something they just never thought could happen again. Because, so many women get divorced and then end up feeling, men move on quickly, and then I know a lot of women kind of feel like they're done. Like that's the best years of their lives are behind them, and all we've got forward to look forward to is dry vaginas and menopause.
Oh, and also one thing that they picked up on that I've been aware of in even in my social circles, the notion that older women are unattractive to younger men is actually not true. You look. The women that I know in their 40s that have gone on Tinder, the main thing that they've found is kind of a bit of shock at how many guys in their 20s and 30s that swipe right or left. God, I'm really out of touch, aren't I? Swipe right?
Know. Right.
Anyway,
right, yeah.
For them, I think culturally and it's often comes from women, this sense that older women are unattractive, but it's actually frankly, even if you look at porn searches online, older women are a popular take. There's this weird myth that they're unattractive to younger men. And there's often...
But even the term older women, piss off.
Oh, yeah, no, well, exactly. Yeah, adult women are unattractive. And frankly, that's what it is. It's like basically if you look like an adult, you're supposed to look like a young Kardashian sister or something like that. But yeah, in the experience of lots of friends I've had, and I even find writing drama, you'll start to write, potentially a woman in her 40s having an affair with someone in their 30s, and you encounter all these people questioning it deeply. But the fact of the matter is, it happens, and they detail really well what those younger guys like, and often it is, frankly, because there's a lot less pressure for them. There's not the sense that these women are just, often if it's with a woman their own age, then they're thinking, oh, she wants to have kids, and this is just a stepping stone towards that. Whereas the older woman has potentially had kids and everything. There's not that pressure.
Gross. That whole
I know,
notion.
Yeah, it's not. I'm not saying it's all altruistic and beautiful, but nonetheless,
women in their 20s and 30s are just trying to tick boxes. I mean, hopefully, and I know with my daughters especially, that notion is flipped on its head. That is not that the idea that a woman has this path that she must take, that she's got to go. It's different now. You got to go to uni, then you get the killer job, and then you meet the dude, and then you get married, and then you have the kids, and then you manage to somehow balance it, and then that's it. You're set for the next 20 years.
Yeah.
And that notion is hopefully being challenged. That is not the end game. You don't have to tick the boxes to be a successful woman.
No.
And that's why I liked this podcast, and we'll put a link to it so you guys can listen to it.
And also, all the episodes aren't about sex, by the way.
No.
But it's about miscarriage, or it's about being put in a mental hospital. That's one of my other really favourite ones, because you never think something like that's going to happen to you, and they spoke to 3 women that were in that position, and it was riveting.
There's a few clubs that I can belong to on that podcast. I've been in a private mental facility. I've had a miscarriage.
Former reality star. She hasn't done that show yet.
Former reality star. My vagina does feel perhaps that it's seen better days. Just spiritually.
The club for women whose vaginas have seen
No.
better.
I don't mean physically. I mean spiritually.
Oh, yeah.
I think I'm pretty happy with how she functions. She's great. We're great mates. But I think
Self-cleaning
she's a bit
oven.
sad. Yeah, self-cleaning oven. I just think she's a bit sad. I think she's a bit tired. I think, she's probably just needing a bit of a rest. She's hibernating. I've got a hibernating vulva. And once that's over...
No, honestly, your vagina, it's Madonna in the American Life era. She's just about confessions on the dance floors coming out soon. That's what I think.
Oh, okay. I'll tell her
she's going to have another massive global hit pretty soon. She'll be in a pink leotard before you know it.
Oh, she does miss the days of having a pink leotard shoved up her. It's been a long time since we've done that.
Does she? Should she be reached for comment about that?
I just want to say to anyone listening now, and I don't know, it's because we have been in this pandemic for so long, especially in Melbourne, and it's been 6 months of kind of, if I didn't have to go on the project once every, 1 or 2 weeks, I just think I would be, be hidden, buried under a pile of comfortable clothing. I just wouldn't leave the house at all, with hair everywhere and skin and rashes and horrible things.
Often I jump in and say, you're being too hard, you're underestimating stuff. I actually think that's probably true. I do think that the project is keeping you to some sort of level of...
socially acceptable public appearance.
This is a woman that can really do a couch. She can really do it. long term. She's very specific about the couch and about what is within reach of her on the couch, the devices, the food, the wine, the gin.
I think that we need to interview the Yoni Whisperer. I think that we're rounding this out in that go listen to this podcast, the Midlife Sexual Awakening version of Curveball, the club you
didn't want to be a part of.
Didn't want to be a part of. And if you're feeling like maybe your vulva's in hibernation, as Michael said, perhaps it's just in its, folk album era of its career. Maybe it's Gaga's Joanne,
Yeah.
And then just get ready because Chromatic is around the corner.
Oh, and you're even going to have Bradley Cooper before you get there. So
thank God. Oh, good. I'll let her know that there's a Bradley Cooper around
There's
the corner.
There's a real thing in that. Which diva is your vagina? Was it a one-hit wonder?
Oh, the joke. I want to make a joke and say a diva who's passed on, but I won't because that's not very good. But that's who my vagina is.
Oh.
Insert dead diva. She had a great career. She had a sparkling. Everyone loved her, and then she died.
Did she die in a bath?
Michael!
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Well, look, better that than you could have been like Colette Ring My Bell. Like, there was just a brief little flare up early on and then nothing.
Maybe. And this podcast did give me hope that, of course, women have their sexual peaks in their 40s. Remember reading that?
These women are living proof of that on this podcast.
100%. I'm just glad that I have a male best friend that I can discuss the death of my flaps with. Can liken it to Madonna, and I feel much better. And that is the crux of this podcast. Really.
We've really been on a journey. I think it's one of our longest ones anyway.
Who cares? I've enjoyed it. Oh, shit, I've got to interview Rob Mills. All right, I've got to go.
Okay.
All right, thanks for the chat.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
This is Emsolation.
Okay, well, that's it. That's all we have time for today. Thank you for listening. God, we do cover a broad range of topics. I know I say that all the time, but today was no exception. I was in a bit of a mood. I apologise for that. I record the podcast at different times of the day, and I had a bad night last night, as you heard. And if you watch me on social media, you know I did. And then I woke up in a grump and I recorded the podcast in a grump, and I'm sorry. I annoyed myself today. But I wanted to let you know that on Friday we have a very special edition of the podcast. We interviewed Asha Keddy, who of course starred as Dr. Nina Proudman on the beloved Australian dramedy, Offspring comedy, dramedy. Yeah, that's a drama comedy, dramedy. It's not I don't like the word. I put the word dramedy up there with like webinar. Anyway, she's great. Asha Keddy, amazing, of course. Michael and I interviewed her. It's been 10 years since the first episode of Offspring aired. Incredible. Can you believe it? 10 years. Asha couldn't. She was wonderful. She was gorgeous. She was very generous. And she never gives interviews because she's super classy like that. And yet somehow allowed Michael and I to worm our way in. So enjoy that. That's going to be out Friday morning. First thing, a big treat for all you Offspring fans. She talks about her chemistry with Madeline Neves. She talks about when she first heard the storyline where Patrick would be leaving us. I mean, I've never heard her talk about those things before, so I was genuinely, you'll hear me, Michael's all like, yeah, I totally worked on the show, I'm very professional, and I just turned into superfan. But I felt like it was my job, on behalf of a lot of you, to turn into superfan and ask the superfan questions. All right, guys, look after yourselves. I hope you're all okay. I'm up and down, as I'm sure a lot of you are, and I think as long as we're all okay with knowing that, it's not going to be sunshine and roses all the time. Take the small wins, find the sun to sit in if you can, and we'll chat soon. Bye, guys.